Let me begin today in a manner perhaps a little bit out of the ordinary. I would like to tell you about a person, Courtney Taylor, a classmate of mine in high school and all throughout school. From third grade to high school, I was in classes with Courtney. Let me tell you a little bit about her. She was a wonderful and kind person, but she was so much of an introvert. She was shy and she was quiet, but she was loud in one area, and that was her clothing. She always had amazing outfits. She wore things that no one else did. She combined clothes in ways that others would be scared to do so. Yet she always somehow matched perfectly. Her outfits were always on point. Why do I mention this? Courtney Taylor was a wonderful person with a big personality. Yet she never showed it by speaking out. She used her clothing and excellent fashion sense to do so. I remember Courtney because she was able to express herself through clothing. Now imagine if throughout school we had been consigned to wear matching uniforms. No one would have remembered Courtney. Today I'd like to talk about school uniforms and the disadvantages associated with them. Now not everyone will agree with what I have to say. Some will say that school uniforms are beneficial. However, though there may be some perceived benefits, they come at a high cost. Please take a second to look at the clothing you have on. Why are you wearing it? It may be comfortable, it may be suited for a certain job, perhaps you're trying to look nice. Our clothing has a purpose, it has a reason. Behind that reason there is a choice involved. School uniforms take away that choice. I am someone who likes clothes. I like to look nice. My school never had uniforms and I am grateful for that. I have also done extensive research on this topic. As someone who is very concerned with appearance, the subject is very important to me. As someone who is unique, the subject should be very important to you. Today I will share with you two major disadvantages school uniforms present, namely they limit student individuality and expression, and they can be very expensive. I will also share effective alternatives to uniforms. Let's begin with how uniforms limit student self-expression. According to a survey given to my college peers, fashion and clothing play an important role in nearly 80% of students' lives. Two other students were indifferent, and only one claimed that fashion was not important to them. Only one student said that fashion was not a good way to express oneself. These results say, almost unanimously, that clothes play an important role in self-expression of young people. Of self-expression, Judith Glaser, founder of Harvard Coaching Institute, said, "Neuroscience is teaching us that self-expression might be one, if not the most important way for people to connect, navigate, and grow. Self-expression promotes individuality, which in turn promotes greatness." Given this evidence, why would anyone want to prevent such growth in students by confining them to uniforms? In England, the youth are confined to wear uniforms. This makes them look like cookie-cutter people, each a copy of the last, which goes along perfectly with the drab weather. It is not exciting. Consider again my classmate Courtney Taylor. Who would she have been if not allowed to express herself through her sense of style? Now that we understand the significance that clothing can play in our lives as an outlet for self-expression for students, let's examine how school uniforms can also negatively impact parents and families as a whole. School uniforms can place a big financial burden on families. While living in England, I constantly heard middle-class families expressing the difficulty they had in affording school uniforms. According to the Children's Society, a UK-based charity, 1 million children live in families across England who are getting into debt to meet the rising cost of school uniforms. That is nearly 10% of the population that has children. This number is understandable in looking at the cost of uniforms. According to the website Teaching Times, families with children at secondary level schools are paying an average of more than £300 per child per year in school uniform costs, which is roughly $350 to $400. Now consider that many families have multiple children. Those children still need regular clothes for weekends, summer, and after school. The costs quickly add up and become outrageous. Next, I would like to discuss an alternative to school uniforms. The best and most reasonable alternative to school uniforms is a clear and strict dress code. As we consider this topic, we must ask ourselves, Why are uniforms there in the first place? Madison Catholic schools require students to wear uniforms. According to their newspaper, the Catholic Herald, the reason students must wear uniforms is school uniforms provide a built-in standard for modesty. During my research, this seems to be a common reason that schools have uniforms. However, this is not the only solution to the problem of immodesty. My school system was very conservative and traditional. Every year, students were given a dress code. During the first week of school, teachers went over the dress code with students. Students then had to take a piece of paper home to their parents saying that they had read and agreed to the dress code policy of the school. Any student who broke the dress code could not only got in trouble, but they had to have a parent bring them a change of clothes. The policy was extremely effective and prevented almost all problems revolving around immodesty. As we come to a close, I invite you to consider how the disadvantages of school uniforms outweigh the benefits. Not only do they limit self-expression at an important time of life, they can also be very expensive, and better alternatives already exist. I leave you now with a quote from the renowned Ralph Waldo Emerson. To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment.